Hello and welcome to the quarterfinal Champions League draw, where Arsenal are going to find out who they face in the last 8 of the competition. Let's get on the way with it. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode, but this time for a watch-along. Now, we don't do watch-alongs on this channel. I should probably be looking more at the camera, really, shouldn't I? I was saying to the boys before I set this up, this is the most unorthodox setup for me. As those that listen to this morning's show will know, I'm currently house-sitting at my in-laws' house, looking after this dog next to me at the moment, and it's just created absolute chaos in trying to do anything technically professional. So I've got like 3 tables, I've got 2 laptops in front of me, the camera's there while sitting on a sofa. So it's interesting. But I'm very happy to be joined by some fantastic guests. First of all, it's Leo. How you doing, Leo? You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. Hi, thank you. You good?
No problem at all. Yes, very good, mate. Very good indeed. Also joined by Mike. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Tom. Hello to everybody, and make sure you're smashing those likes and subscribing.
Indeed, he knows the business. He knows the business by now. And joining up our quartet today is Damien. How you doing, Damien?
Yeah, I'm good, Tom. Enjoying a day off, so I thought I'd jump on the live.
Indeed, me too. Annual leave. Happy days. In fact, mine's like, it's annual leave, but it's enforced work to babysit is what I'm doing. We're babysitting this little one. But it's an interesting day. It's a day where I think some of us during that Porto game thought might never come because there was some real nerves of that Champions League last 16. And Leo, how do you feel about Arsenal reaching the quarterfinals now of this competition?
Very happy. I didn't know how I would feel because obviously I grew up on the 10-2 on aggregate to Barcelona, to Bayern, and losing out to Barca. So I'm very proud. I'm very happy that we got here. I'm very excited to see who we're going to draw and how we're going to play against the best teams in Europe.
Absolutely. Mike, there are obviously a lot of teams involved. We're going to go through each one shortly before the draw starts in about 10 minutes' time. But how are you feeling about Arsenal's own, ability to kind of compete in the Champions League this season, considering it's their first time back in the competition?
One thing that this team has demonstrated over the last couple of years is its ability to learn and learn quick. And I think every challenge that we've had seems to give the squad an extra layer of football intelligence, if you like, to tackle our next challenge. And I think we'll have learned a lot from Porto. And I'm not looking at many of the teams left in the competition and thinking, I'm scared of them. I think we can be competitive with them all. So I'm feeling as excited as a puppy.
Yeah, indeed. You said you were very excited about that. Damien, I think that the Champions League obviously is seen so differently to last season's Europa League campaign. Like when we got knocked out by Sporting, it was like, no, this sucks and we really shouldn't be getting knocked out by Sporting. But in the end, we were looking at that Premier League title race as very much the priority. It feels as though this time around, though, this is very much on a par with what we're doing in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been asked, as I'm sure a lot of Arsenal fans have, on many occasions, if you could choose one, which would you choose? And it's a case of I'm not prepared to choose. I want both, and I don't want to get to the end of the season. We've prioritised, say, the Champions League over the Premier League, and we've ended up missing out on both. Whereas if we actually go for both, we might actually get at least one, if not both of them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that David Raya said that, didn't he? In that interview he did with I think it was CBS that he was doing with. But yeah, I think that is going to be so critical, is making sure that the focus doesn't waver between the two and that we really do look to try and take on both. But let's talk about some of the teams still involved. Of course, I think the biggest surprise maybe was Leo, Inter Milan being knocked out by Atletico Madrid. Inter Milan went into that game with a 1-goal lead. They went 2-0 up thanks to Di Marco. And then, of course, eventually on penalties, Diego Simeone's side. Now, we beat a Porto team that many, including myself, might say, not on paper, but tactically, were one of the toughest teams that Arsenal stylistically could have faced. Do you think that Atletico Madrid have that similar kind of factor with them, that if Arsenal were to draw Atletico, people would see that as a pretty tough stylistic test for Arsenal?
Yes, definitely. And if you ask me what is the one team I don't want to draw other than City, it would be Atletico. I do think there are a lot of similarities between this team and the Diego Simeone's approach. I think there's a lot of Simeone in this team compared to the last season. And I would be interested to see how it would pan out. Interesting what Arteta might think of tactically. But yeah, I think it's one of the toughest draw we can get, actually.
Absolutely. Mike, the history behind Arsenal's battles with Bayern Munich are pretty well trodden, but it's a different Bayern side and a very different Arsenal team in comparison to them now. The bookies have us as higher favourites compared to Bayern Munich in this competition. How do you see now the relationship between those two, and how would you feel about a potential draw between those two teams?
I guess first thing to say is I would prefer whoever we play to be away first. I think that would be my primary thing. I did the Emirates, if we have to go into extra time, etc., would be a wonderful place to be. It nearly blew my TV up in terms of the noise that was coming through. In terms of Bayern, they're probably the worst version of Bayern I can remember. Not that I'm an avid watcher of the Bundesliga, but I can never remember them being this vulnerable in terms of defensively. They look very ordinary, which of course is great for us. They've got a style of football which suits us too in terms of playing to our strength. They have one thing which is a little bit of a blip historically for us, which is that dude up front. So, but we've got scores to settle all over the place with some of these teams. We've got scores to set with Barca, with Atletico, with Bayern. I would love to have Bayern. I think that's not a bad draw at all.
Yeah, I think that there's stylistically some advantages to playing against a Thomas Tuchel side. We know that Arteta's, beaten Thomas Tuchel, I believe, in the past at his own place when he was manager of Chelsea. So, yeah, certainly there is some scope with Bayern Munich. Damien, am I right in saying that Manchester City are probably the team that you're looking forward to least out of all of the teams in the draw?
Yeah, and if there's one team I don't want, it's Manchester City. And that's not because of how good they are or anything like that. It's just I've got no interest in playing the same team 5 times in a season. We're in the Champions League. I'd rather play someone else. My pick personally, Mike made a good point with Bayern Munich, and that would certainly be my second choice. My first choice is Real Madrid, because I just think if we're going to be at this level, let's just go against the best, other than Manchester City.
Of course. No, I see what you mean. So you rather face them earlier than later on in the competition?
Yeah, because I think after the game against Porto, like Mike said earlier on, we learn very quickly. So I think if we come up against Atletico Madrid, for example, I think the team are very capable of learning the lessons from the game against Porto to apply them in the game against someone like Atletico Madrid. But I think with Real Madrid, with how good they are, at that stage in the season, if we can actually knock Real Madrid out of the Champions League, the confidence will just go through the roof, not just for the players, for the fans, for everybody. And I think a win against Real Madrid could be the difference between us winning both or not.
Yeah. No, I think you raise a fair point, and you got to beat the best to be the best, as they say, as well, which is certainly worth pointing out. We are only a few minutes now from the programme starting. There is never a time given as to when those balls will be drawn specifically. So if you are tuning in and joining us, first of all, thank you. Thank you for listening. I see plenty of you in the chat box. Of course, all of us are going to be tuning in our own version of streams. I've got TNT Sports to my left. I'm sure elsewhere in the world people will be using different streams to watch. I think it's also available on the UEFA website as well. But if you are listening through here and you're listening to get our thoughts, thank you so much. Do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. If you're new to this, it's the first time maybe you've been able to catch the channel. We do shows every single day at 8 a.m. And Leo and Mike and Damien are all members of the channel as well and are big parts of our Discord server, which of course you can join if you are an expert member or a TGT ambassador. A link in the description for our link tree for more information about that. Let's go through some of the other teams then, of course, still involved in this as well. Leo, there is Borussia Dortmund as well, who, of course, I think for most people would probably be their favoured pick in terms of the least challenge, with all due respect. Would you agree with that?
I would agree that they, on paper, are the least challenging side, but I'm with Damien on this one. I would rather beat the best teams in that as soon as possible. And if I have a choice, I would rather play someone like Real Madrid, Bayern, or even Barca, even though they're not at the best now. But in terms of quality, I think Borussia Dortmund are the most beatable side out of all of them. And stylistically, I think they suit us pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, they'll play attacking football. There'll be plenty of spaces for Arsenal to try and go. It's a bit of a pain for fans away-wise. It's difficult to get to Dortmund. It's not like a classic, you fly to Munich and you're there. I think there are people saying that you need to go through alternative routes to make it. So that-wise, it might not be the best. But you mentioned Barcelona, and Mike, again, I talked to you just recently about Bayern. Barca, the other side that Arsenal arguably have the most history with on the European stage. And of course, the last team that Arsenal played in the last quarterfinals that we reached back in 2010. No longer do we have the Pep Guardiolas and the Leo Messis. And now instead it's Xavi, who of course was playing against Arsenal the last time we played against Barca. And Robert Lewandowski being their talismanic figure in their side. But they aren't the Barca of old, quite similar to Bayern, I suppose.
I think that's absolutely correct. Yeah. Again, if you look historically at how awesome Bayern Barcelona have been over the years, and this is again a fairly diluted version. That's not to say they haven't got a heap of quality. Of course they have, but we took them pre-season, and I know it's only pre-season last time we played them, but it was. I don't think Bayern with much to fear about Bayern, and I think it feels like. I'm not quite sure I'll go down the Real Madrid track in terms of wanting to face that big right now. I'd rather Man City and Real Madrid, one of them knocked each other out, to be honest, and then take them in the semis. But Barca, I think, would be a hefty scalp that would achieve the aim or the goal that Damien said in terms of building confidence to a significant level.
Absolutely. So I'm being distracted by a dog tomorrow. I could go.
It's all good. But yeah, I'd be quite happy with Barca. Again, first leg away, please.
Absolutely. That's an interesting point, actually, what Mike raises there, Damien, in terms of the draw and whether we'd rather play at home first or second. Some say that they like playing at home first because it means that you can kind of just cement yourself in that position. You get the home leg done, and if you win it confidently, you can set yourself up really good rather than having to chase in the second leg. But then we saw against Porto that maybe having the second leg at home, if it does go to extra time, you've got that advantage there as well. Where do you kind of side in terms of what you would rather do?
I've always sat on the side I'd rather have the home leg last. Big reason, like you just said, if it goes to extra time penalties, we have the home advantage for that. But I also think, the away leg is usually going to be the most difficult one of the two. And you get that out of the way. When you bring the game back to your own ground, the job in front of you, you know what you've got to do. And I think you can get much more difficult nights if you're actually away in the second leg than being at home.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think that home advantage for Arsenal this season has been massive, and I think the Emirates as well is going to be a cauldron of noise again in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, which is the draw is now, or the program at least is underway. I've spotted Edu and Richard Garlick in the crowd. They're both there representing the club, and of course, something we've not mentioned is I believe that we get to find out the draw for the semi-final as well today. I think they show you the pathway, if I'm spot on about that. So whoever we face in the quarterfinals, I think we also we find out our pathway of who we would potentially be facing in the semis and therefore in the final as well, which should be interesting when we eventually get that. Now, the final, Leo, is being played at Wembley this year, of course. Arsenal have good history there. Is that in any way an extra motivation, or do you think I'm getting too ahead of myself there?
I think it's fair to say that Wembley is a very good motivational factor. We've been very good at Wembley. If I'm not wrong, historically, we've played at Wembley the home games at some point. No, when we didn't have hybrid or something like that. I'm not sure.
I think, back in the day we played. It was our first Champions League games were at Wembley, I believe. Yeah, because Highbury wasn't to standard. Was that right, Damien? Mike, you might be able to tell me better. Is that correct?
I can't remember the reason why. I can't remember doing it.
I'm pretty sure we played
the reason why.
I think it was something to do with the fact with Highbury is the reason why we played at Wembley. But our first Champions League games were indeed there back in the day.
Yes,
Sorry, Leo, carry on.
So I think in Wembley is like a second home to us. I think if we get to the final, we have that home advantage, especially if we play against a team that's not from England.
Absolutely. I think if you face Man City, of course, they've got their own history, their own record there, which you would look at and think, that's going to suit them. But if we can get ourselves to the final, I think that would be a real big boost. Mike, the other team we've not yet discussed, PSG, Kylian Mbappe. How threatening do you see them?
They're a real hot and cold team, aren't they? They can be, but it is dependent on whether he shows up or not. Outside of him, I'm not sure the threat is massive. He has a great game, and anybody would have a tough job stopping him. Outside of that, I'm not seeing PSG as a major favourite in this competition. I'm not sure that I rate them very much at all. In fact, I would probably put them after Dortmund. I would probably put them number 7 in terms of my list of favourites.
Maybe while we still wait, because the Giorgio Marchetti is out now, which usually means we're very close to the draw. We all agree. I think Dortmund are the one we would favour in terms of competitivity. I know that Damien, you were saying you like Real Madrid, and Leo, I think you mentioned that as well. But we all agree that probably Dortmund rank the lowest on the list of teams. I think if we're looking for a team that we're more likely to get through against, rather than just my personal preference, then I would absolutely say Dortmund would be the team I would most like to draw in that regard. I don't really mind who we get, but from a competitivity perspective, like you say, I think Dortmund would probably be the preferred option. I think that it's probably a close one between Atletico and PSG for your sixth and fifth sides. PSG, of course, losing against Newcastle in their group stage, the team that finished bottom of their group. Atletico Madrid scraping through, but impressively so, it has to be said, against Inter Milan. But still, I think that they're a team that, while stylistically they may not suit us, I think that you look at teams like Man City, Bayern, even Barca to a degree, who have beaten Atletico this season in La Liga, as slightly more challenging in terms of just their style. And they're just revealing that John Obi Mikel, I believe, is going to be doing the draw. So we've got a Chelsea factor in there. They've got to somehow squeeze Chelsea into the Champions League because they can't get in there through their own merit. So John Obi Mikel is going to be doing the draw this morning. But after PSG and Atleti, it starts to, I think, get a little bit more tougher in terms of those next 4 teams. Is anyone ranking Manchester City not as their toughest opponent? Is Real Madrid for anyone the toughest? Because I think it's between those two, is it not?
I think
yeah. So go on, Leo.
Go on, Leo. And then we'll
go on.
Someone's got to not be polite, which I know is tough. Go on, Mike.
All right. So I think I would rather play Man City than Real Madrid from the point of view of
Real
Man City.
That's interesting. I think I'd rather have Real Madrid than Man City. I think Damien would as well.
Yeah, it's just the unknown. In terms of where this squad is now, going away to Real Madrid feels more intimidating, perhaps, and threatening than perhaps going away to the Etihad. We've beaten City twice this year already, and we are on for beating them a 3rd time in a couple of weeks' time, of course. So I would be, in terms of who might stand the better chance of knocking us out, I would say I would put Real Madrid number 1 and then City number 2.
Interesting. Leo?
Yeah, same here. I think that the unknown factor is very important with Real Madrid. Like, obviously, we as fans don't watch, I think, as much La Liga than Premier League, and I don't think a lot of people watch Real Madrid or Osasuna And I think it's, from fan standpoint, I think it's a lot more difficult to prepare and to evaluate them properly. They've had a lot of injuries this season, and I can't really fathom what type of football they're playing tactically. There's a lot of joga bonito and freedom for the players going on there. But from personally, I would love to play City if it's in the final, because it's one game, and I think we know them and we know what to prepare for. But of course, Man City know what to prepare for as well. And if it's Real Madrid, I would rather have it over 2 legs, because we get 2 games against Real Madrid. And historically, we've gone past Real Madrid. And I just think it would be very interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about that when you play a team in the final, because I feel like against Man City, a one-off game, I'm far more confident than playing them across 2 legs. Whereas Real Madrid, in a weird way, I kind of would want to play them across 2 legs and bring them to the Emirates as well, which I think maybe is something. Damien, last words on the City-Real Madrid dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to find with a lot of European teams that they're not as good travellers as what the English teams are. So that's probably another reason why I'd rather have someone like Madrid in a 2-legged tie, because I think we could get them at the Emirates. It's just the performance we need to put in at the Bernabeu, though.
Yeah, which is going to be very tough. Marchetti is currently talking and explaining through the rules. So we are very close now to this draw. We're going to try and fill it out on the screen for you, so you've got it on the screen. I'm sure that there's going to be some people in the chat box that may be even slightly ahead of us. I'm sure there's going to be some of us watching our feeds that are perhaps slightly ahead of each other. So this could be interesting. It's not like when you're in the same room being able to watch things. So the teams to be drawn: Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain, and Real Madrid. Lisa in the chat says they've got butterflies. And I think that's probably a fair point. We've not been in a quarterfinal of a competition, for a while. Here comes the first ball. We are moving. So the first team to be drawn is, now I'm not going to be looking at the chat box because I'm going to be looking at the writing down the name of the teams. John Obi Mikel turning the screw on the ball to reveal. Take your time, John. That's fine. Yeah, there we go. It's going to be a long draw. Takes out the cards, and it is indeed Arsenal are the first team out in the draw. So we will find out immediately who Arsenal will be facing in this year's Champions League. Let's see who Arsenal will be facing in the quarterfinals. I'm kind of gutted. I hope we'd be last. I'm just seeing it all build up. Now, it means, of course, that Arsenal can draw any of the other 7 teams in the last 8. There is no being ruled out. So it is an equal draw against all of them. I think that the chat box are saying that it's Bayern Munich from the looks of things. I've not caught up with that. And I think Bayern is who we've got. So Bayern Munich against Arsenal. Just double checking, it is indeed Bayern Munich. Arsenal will be playing Bayern Munich in the last 8 of the competition. Boys, quick reactions. Mike, we'll go to you first. They're not who you wanted, but tell me what you think.
That's okay. I would have preferred it the other way around. I'm sure that first team out is at home first, isn't it?
First, I believe, yes.
Yeah. So I'm not afraid of Bayern. It's just I would have preferred it the other way around. That's not a bad draw.
Leo?
Yeah, it's not bad. I'm excited. Not scared. Excited.
It's the first time I think I'm not scared going into this one. Damien, how are you feeling? You wanted Real Madrid. You've got another really big team. You must be happy, I guess.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The only disappointment is that we're not away in the first leg. But yeah, I'm looking forward to a game against Bayern and seeing what we can do with Harry Kane.
And that will be the narrative. Harry Kane against Arsenal. He has an excellent record against Arsenal, of course, in the competition. And so we will find out how indeed he does. Next draw coming out, we've got, I believe, from the looks of things, I can see Dan might be ahead of things in the chat box, which is giving us a little bit of an inside scoop, it seems. Apparently, Dan is in neon, sitting next to Edu, and giving us the insights from the chat box. If that is indeed the next draw, Atletico Madrid is indeed being drawn out against Borussia Dortmund. So that is the next draw that we've got. Atletico Madrid against Borussia, if I can spell, Atletico Madrid against Dortmund. How do we feel about that one then? Because that means that one of Atleti or Dortmund will be in the semi-final. I don't know if that's our semi-final route. Do we know that it is our semi-final?
I think they did a draw for the semi-finals afterwards.
Afterwards, okay. That makes more sense.
That.
So that means, Leo, that one of Atleti or Dortmund will be in the semis. If Arsenal get past Bayern, maybe it could be one of them two.
Would be pretty cool. But are we sure that we will get the semi-finals draw as well?
Yes, we are definitely going to find out what the semi-finals are going to be. Yes.
Okay. Exciting.
Go on, Mike. How do you feel about that draw?
I'd love to play either of those in the semis.
This is Madrid against... Sorry, I'm just going to cut in. Real Madrid against Manchester City is the next one. That's pretty cool. Real Madrid against City. That's the dream result elsewhere for Arsenal. Mike, go on.
Absolutely. That's just fantastic to have one of those out. The competition is top draw.
It's also about time Manchester City had a decent team in this year's competition.
Yeah, it's not exactly Copenhagen, is it?
No.
And it means Barca against PSG is the next one, which means that one of those will also... It means we've not got a scenario where Real or Man City, both of them being in the semis. I think that this is potentially the third to fourth hardest draw that we could have got from this. But avoiding both Real Madrid and Man City and getting them face one another is really, really interesting. Of course, we've still got the second part of the draw to come where we find out the pathway. Are we all praying for the Atleti Dortmund, or Damien, are you leaning more towards wanting the Real City semi-final?
With the way the draw's lined up at the moment, I might have to backtrack a little bit.
That's fine. Changing our minds is a thing we do here.
Because looking at the fact that we could have either Atletico or Dortmund and just leave Real, Man City, Barca, PSG to fight out amongst themselves as to who we face in the final. You know, from a competition perspective, Atletico and Dortmund would definitely be the preferred option. Yeah.
I'm curious. Our good friend of the channel, Drew, who is a big, obviously Bundesliga fan. I'm curious to get his thoughts. I'm going to drop him a WhatsApp and see if we can get his thoughts. Because I know he's going to be very intrigued to give his thoughts on Bayern Munich and the draw. We're obviously about to do the draw for the semi-final selection to find out who indeed will be facing one another in the next round. Jobbing Mikel is going to be drawing this out now. I'm looking in the chat box just to see if we can get a little bit of a heads up on what it's going to be. We're getting the first draw, and it just says winners of the quarterfinal, but it doesn't say which one. He's covering up the little number. Does it say 2? I think it's 2. Okay, so it's Atleti Dortmund versus... Okay, so we have City or Real Madrid in the semi-finals. There it is. That's the situation. So it's either us or Bayern against Real, which means one of Barca, PSG, Dortmund and Atletico Madrid will be in the semis. How do you feel about that, Mike? I mean, that's probably not the result we were looking for, but... Tell me what you think.
To take on Damien's point about rather playing Real or Man City over 2 legs, I think that's not a bad call actually.
Yeah. So if Real Madrid beat City, I think it's better.
Yeah.
If City beat Real Madrid, I think it's very tough to play City in a semi-final. Which, by the way, the dates of these games we should probably say. When Arsenal would be playing these potential games. Arsenal will be playing Bayern Munich at home first, which we tend to always do, I feel. I swear we're always at home first when we play Bayern. The first leg of that game takes place between the Brighton away game on April 6th and Aston Villa at home on April 13th. The second leg away in Bayern is after a home game at the Emirates, which I think is a good thing. Before a game against Wolves away from home, although that game could get postponed if Wolves win against Coventry in the FA Cup. So that's a good thing. If Arsenal are successful in beating Bayern in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, it means they will play the semi-final first leg on the 30th of April, which is a few days after the Tottenham Hotspur game. And then the second leg takes place a few days before Manchester United away from home. So it could get very, very hectic for Arsenal coming in the season. But that, Damien, is what this competition and what, if you want to be at the top, is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't have a problem with facing the best teams in football if you want to be in the best competition in football. Just quickly, that semi-final, second leg, would we be playing home or away in the first leg?
I don't know. I think what was drawn out first. I don't know what was drawn out first. I think we were. So I think we would be at home first. So, yeah, from the looks of things, Justin says Arsenal Bayern against City Real. So it seems that we were drawn first. So I think we would be at home first. Carry on.
Yeah, that was my point, really, yeah.
Is that good? I mean, we've just said that I think we would rather have been home second, wouldn't we? So
yeah, that's the only downside to the whole draw, really, in terms of the Bayern and Real or Man City. I would have preferred to have the away legs. The home leg being the last leg, the second leg.
Yeah, Leo, how are you feeling about this?
Well, Dortmund are gonna have a tough job at Wembley against Arsenal, and they. I don't know how they're gonna get from Dortmund all the way to London, but yeah, it's
it's a good point. It's a good point. Oh, dearie me. Amazing.
Yeah.
Let us know in the chat box how you're feeling about this. Jalali says, sod it, got to beat the best to be the best. Absolutely. 2 home draws, says Gooner 76. They may be happy about that. Ondavoli says, though, it's not looking good, guys, on this one. I'm curious as to what people are feeling about this. We'll be ending the stream shortly, as that does bring, of course, a close to the draw for the quarterfinals of the Champions League. I think overall, are we giving this a thumbs up? I think we're quite happy we avoided, I know, Damien, you wanted Real Madrid, but I think seeing that we're going to get either of them in the semi-finals, I think you're probably pretty happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bayern Munich, with the way they are this season, I think we're more than capable of taking them in the quarterfinals. We obviously have to be at our best, if not very near our best, to do it. But I do believe we're more than capable of taking on Bayern. And yeah, I want to see us against Real Madrid.
Absolutely. Mike, final thoughts?
We'll take any of those 4 in the final.
Is that it?
That's it. We'll beat Atletico, Dortmund, Barca, or PSG in the final. I think that's.
I tell you what,
we
if
get
Arsenal
there,
were to
and
make
it's
the final, you've done all the hard work. You've done all the hard work. Get to the final. You got one of Atleti, Dortmund, Barca, or PSG.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I think the team that will be looking at this with the best happiness is probably PSG. I think they'll bank themselves against Barca, and I think they back themselves against Atleti and Dortmund. And that is the last season of Mbappe. I think they'll be looking at this draw and thinking, if we can get to the final, we've got a real great chance. So, it's exciting. Leo, finish us off with your final thoughts, mate.
Very interesting, actually. I just realized that Luis Enrique is going to play against Barcelona, so he has lots of things to prove, and then he's going to maybe play against Atletico. So PSG are very likely to be there, I think, in the final for us, and for us, obviously. And yeah, if we get to the final, I think we have a good chance.
Yeah, me too.
R4 is the toughest one.
I think if you can get to the semis and just get past Bayern and then just see, if Arsenal get past Bayern, I think they've done a great job. And then we're facing 2 teams that most people would expect us not to beat. Whereas I think with Bayern, there is expectation that Arsenal can do it and can beat Bayern. So I think Liverpool beat Bayern, didn't they, on the way to their Champions League victory, home and away, if I'm not mistaken. So if we can beat Bayern, you're then facing Real Madrid and Man City, or one of those 2 in the semi-finals. I think we'd look at that and go, well, if Arsenal do end up going out the Champions League, they've gone out to one of the 2 potential biggest favourites of that competition. But I'm really feeling positive, like Mike was saying earlier. I'm excited. That phrase of "you've got to beat the best to be the best," I think rings true with this draw. Has it gone in the worst possible way? No, I think we could have faced Real Madrid or Man City here. Having one of those eliminated for the semis and then facing one of them, I think is going to be really exciting indeed. But thank you so much, everybody in the chat box, for listening. Really appreciate your time. Leo, thank you for your time, mate. Tell people they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
can find me on Discord, and I'm also on Twitter, but I only use it to get into verbal brawls with Liverpool fans. And
Who doesn't, mate? Who
and
doesn't?
admiring James Benji's puns, but other than that, I'm just on Discord.
Mike, thank you for your time, mate. Tell people they can find you, what you're going to be up to.
So welcome. I'll see many of you in the Discord channel. I'm just blown away by the excitement that I'm seeing in the chat box. It's fantastic.
Back in the day, it would have been like, for goodness sake, Bayern Munich. But there's some real excitement.
Yeah, it's great to see.
Fantastic to see. Damien, thank you, mate, for your time. Tell people they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I'm on the Discord, so you can find me in there.
Brilliant. And it's goodbye from me. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow morning, of course, at 8 a.m. to give you all the latest updates and further reaction to this fallout. We might hear from Edu as well in the coming hours as he faces the media and gives his thoughts on the tie. And Mikel Arteta, of course, won't be facing the press for a little while. We've got a long break till Arsenal's next game and then the international break. And then this is the last weekend of Premier League action with some FA Cup action thrown in too. But there is a big game in the WSL with Arsenal facing Chelsea today. So that is certainly one that you want to keep your eyes peeled for. And we'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow as well. Have a fantastic evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you happen to be in the world. Arsenal against Bayern Munich again in the Champions League. It was like it was meant to be. But I think it's meant to be rather different this time round. See you. As if I've pressed the button early. See you soon. Have a great day. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal. And now we press it.